The Midnight Express is a name used by a number of different professional wrestling tag teams over the years, starting in the early 1980s. The original group consisted of Dennis Condrey, Randy Rose and Norval Austin. Over the years, members have left or joined the team, including Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, all under the management of either Jim Cornette or Paul E. Dangerously. In the late 1980s, Condrey and Rose wrestled as the original Midnight Express, and even worked a storyline against the then Midnight Express team of Eaton and Lane. In the 1990s, the World Wrestling Federation took two of their wrestlers and turned them into the new Midnight Express. Bob Holly as Bombastic Bob and Bart Gunn as Bodacious Bart. A combination of Condrey, Eaton and Lane occasionally compete as the Midnight Express on the independent circuit. Midnight Express history. Dennis Condrey, Randy Rose and Norval Austin. In 1980, a new team was formed in Southeast Championship Wrestling when Dennis Condrey's previous partner Don Carson retired. Condrey teamed up with Randy Rose and won the NWA Southeast Tag Team Championship shortly after they started teaming up. The team started a storyline feud with Norval Austin, who was one of the regulars in SECW. Austin recruited various partners such as Paul Orndorff, who were successful in briefly capturing the Southeast Tag Team Gold. In an attempt to throw Rose and Condrey off, Austin would adopt the masked persona of the Shadow, and together with Brad Armstrong defeat the team for the titles on May 4, 1981, holding them until July 27, 1981 before losing the belts back to Condrey and Rose. After the title loss, Austin turned on Armstrong and joined up with Condrey and Rose to form a stable known as the Midnight Express. In the book The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Tag Teams, Condrey explains that the name did not stem from the movie Midnight Express, but from the fact that they all dressed in black, drove black cars, and were out partying past midnight. Together, the three men would win the Our Southern Tag Team title in the CWA and invoke a rule that'd later be referred to as the Freebird Rule, which allowed any two of the three men to defend the titles on a given night so that their opponents never knew what combination to expect. The Midnight Express would lose the Our Southern Tag Team title to Bobby Eaton and Sweet Brown Sugar before returning to SECW in the spring of 1982. Upon their return to Southeastern Championship Wrestling, the Midnight Express would quickly regain the Southeastern Tag Team title from Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden on September 27, 1982. The Express then became involved in a feud with the Mongolian Stomper and his storyline son, Mongolian Stomper Jr., whom they would lose the Southeastern title to but ultimately regain as they sent Stomper and Stomper Jr. packing. After having dealt with the Stompers, the Midnight Express, their next challenges came in the form of the odd duo of Dizzy, Ed Hogan and local workhorse Ken Lucas. Hogan and Lucas won the tag team title in June, only to see the Midnight Express use their 3-on-2 advantage to regain the titles. Despite holding the titles once more in July 1983, it was not long until the Midnight Express finally got the better of their challenges by reclaiming the titles for good by the end of July 1983. The Midnight Express' final feud in the SECW was with the local heroes Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller, who managed to drive the group out of SECW, at least in storyline terms. After dropping the Southeastern Tag Team titles to Brad and Scott Armstrong, Austin, Condrey and Rose went their separate ways. Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton. When Bobby Eaton was sent to Mid-South Wrestling under promoter Bill Watts as a part of a talent trade, it was decided that he should be part of the new version of the Midnight Express. Eaton teamed with former rival Dennis Condrey under the management of Jim Cornette to form a new version of the Midnight Express. The Express had up until this point been a group of wrestlers, but once Eaton and Condrey joined together, the Midnight Express worked exclusively as a two-man team. To complement Loverboy Dennis, Eaton was nicknamed Beautiful Bobby, a nickname he still uses. The Express was first booked in an angle with the Mid-South Tag Team Champions Magnum TA and Misty, Wrestling 2. The highlight of the angle saw Eaton and Condrey tarring and feathering Magnum Tar in the middle of the ring. The Express won their first tag team championship when Misty, Wrestling 2 turned on Magnum Tar and attacked him during a match, allowing Eaton and Condrey to walk away with the titles without much opposition. With Mr. Wrestling 2 and Magnum Tar splitting up, the Midnight Express needed a new team to defend their newly won titles against. This team was the Rock and Roll Express, whom they started a long-running series of matches that would run well into the 1990s and span several wrestling promotions. The two Expresses had a series of matches which differed so much from the way tag team wrestling was traditionally presented at the time, that it gathered a lot of attention both locally and nationally. The two teams feuded throughout 1984 in Mid-South Wrestling before the Midnight Express left the promotion to work elsewhere. The Midnight Express vs. Rock and Roll Express series of matches was so well received by the fans that independent promoters all over the United States still book that match today. 30 years after the rivalry started, the Midnight Express had a short stay in world-class championship wrestling in Texas where they feuded mainly with the Fantastics. When opportunities in WCCW looked to go nowhere, the Midnight Express started to look elsewhere for employment, and what they found would give the team national and international exposure. In 1985, Eaton, Condrey and Cornette signed with Jim Crockett Promotions and thus were exposed on a national level through JCP's television shows that were broadcast on Superstation TBS. Shortly after joining JCP, the Midnight Express reignited their feud with the Rock and Roll Express, from whom they won the NWA World Tag Team titles in February 1986. Eaton and Condrey lost the titles back to the Rock and Roll Express 6 months later. Besides feuding with the Rock and Roll Express, Eaton and Condrey also had long-running feuds with the New Breed as well as the Road Warriors. The feud with the Road Warriors included a high-profile scaffold match at Starrcade 1986, which the Midnight Express lost. Early in 1987, Dennis Condrey suddenly left JCP without giving any reason. After missing the March 25 show in San Francisco, California, and other shows in the following week, the decision was made after he missed the March 31 tapings that a change was needed. Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton are regarded as the most decorated tag team of all time, compiling a total of 50 tag team titles. Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. After Condrey's departure, Eaton was left without a partner. As a possible replacement, Sweet Stan Lane, who had worked against Eaton and knew him well, was suggested. J.J. Dillon approached Stan Lane in Florida telling him that Dusty Rhodes wanted to talk to him. At the time, business was going badly in Florida and Lane's longtime partner Steve Cairn had already quit wrestling. Lane took the opportunity and made the jump to Jim Crockett Promotions after meeting with Rhodes and Eaton in Charlotte. Eaton and Lane's familiarity with each other showed as the new version of the Midnight Express gelled from the beginning. According to Tim Horner, he was also considered to replace Condrey, but Stan Lane just happened to call the office at the right time. Lane debuted as Condrey's replacement on April 4, 1987, in time to join Eaton in facing the Road Warriors that night in Boston, Massachusetts. They quickly meshed as a team, reaching the semi-finals of the Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament on April 11, 1987 in Baltimore, Maryland. On May 16, 1987, the combination of Eaton and Lane became champions as they won the NWA United States Tag Team titles for the first time, a title they would win 3 times during their time together. A year later, the team was cheered on despite being heels as the Midnight Express won the NWA World Tag Team titles from the Horsemen Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard on September 10, 1988. The Midnight Express, a run with the titles, only last a little over a month and a half before the Road Warriors took the gold from them in a brutal match up to that saw the Express further their turn to face. Lane, Eaton and Cornette completed their turn to babyface when they entered into a feud with a team newly arrived from the Hour, the original Midnight Express tag team of Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose. The duo was led by longtime Jim Cornette nemesis Paulie Dangerously in a storyline that saw the originators trying to prove they were better than the new version. The surprise appearance of the original Midnight Express gave Dangerously's team the initial momentum in the feud, but soon after Dennis Condrey left the promotion once more before a loser leaves town match that would see the wrestler that took the losing fall getting fired. This forced the bookers to bring in Jack Victory as a replacement, as Condrey's disappearance cut the promising feud short. Cornette contends in a shoot interview that backstage politics and animosity between the original Midnight's promotion head Jim Crockett and head booker George Scott is what led to the feud being called off and Condrey once again leaving the promotion. Rose ended up taking the pin in the resultant match and was fired from the promotion afterwards. Due to various differences over the direction of the Midnight Express, Cornette, Lane and Eaton left JCP for a short while. Around the time that Ted Turner bought out Jim Crockett and began promoting the Federation under the name World Championship Wrestling. When the issues were resolved, Cornette and the Midnight Express returned to the Federation and a very strong tag team division. When they returned, they took part in the tournament to determine the vacated World Tag Team titles, where they advanced to the finals before losing to the Freebirds with some assistance from the Samoan SWAT team. They would engage in a feud with the Freebirds and Samoans until the 1989 Great American Bash, where they teamed up with the Road Warriors and Dr. Death Steve Williams to defeat the Freebirds and Samoans in a War Games match. They would soon turn heel as a result of a feud with the Dynamic Dudes, who they duped into thinking that Jim Cornette wanted to be the Dudes' manager, when in reality he was all along on the side of the Midnight Express. During a match between the teams at Clash of the Champions IX show in New York, the Dynamic Dudes would gain a measure of revenge when the Midnight Express laid out an open challenge for any team for $10,000, and after dispatching of a couple of no-name teams, the next team was announced from Gotham City and were the Dynamic Duo, who of course were the Dynamic Dudes under masks, who eventually pinned the Express and won the money. The feud would soon lose steam and was forgotten soon after. After returning to their cheating ways, the Midnight Express started a storyline with the up-and-coming team of Flyin' Brian and Z-Man Tom Zenk over the United States Tag Team titles. The Express won the titles from the young team in early 1990, but lost him to the Steiner brothers 3 months later. After a loss at the WCW pay-per-view Halloween Havoc 1990, the Midnight Express split up when Jim Cornette and Stan Lane left the Federation. For the first time in almost a decade, there was no Midnight Express. It was the end of an era in tag team wrestling. Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey. Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose first teamed up in 1980, thus at the original Midnight Express. Dangerously. In 1988, Condrey, Rose, and Dangerously came to the NWA to feud with Eaton, Lane, and Cornette. However, the feud ended abruptly when Condrey left the NWA, just days before Chi-Town Rumble. After defeating Rose and Jack Victory, Dangerously went on to manage the Samoan SWAT team to feud with Eaton, Lane, and Cornette. New Midnight Express. The Midnight Express name was resurrected by the World Wrestling Federation in the late 1990s when they put a combination of Bob Holly and Bart Gunn together as the New Midnight Express, with Cornette as their manager, all as part of the NWA Invasion angle. On March 30, 1998, they won the NWA World Tag Team Championship from the Headbangers but did not achieve much more success in the WWF. Despite having Cornette in the corner and the name Midnight Express, Wrestling fans consider this incarnation of the team as nothing more than a rib by Vince McMahon on Cornette. And in shoot interviews, Cornette has indeed indicated that he never considered the team as continuing the lineage of the Midnight Express, since it was not his idea nor his intention to have glorified jobbers like Gunn and Holly take on the moniker. Midnight Express reunited in 2003. Eaton worked for NWA Mid-Atlantic, forming a new version of the Midnight Express with Ricky Nelson. This Midnight Express version was very short-lived, as Eaton soon started touring with Dennis Condrey as the Midnight Express instead. This version of the Midnight Express still performs together on select independent wrestling cards in the United States. On June 7, 2008, they lost to The Rock, a Roll Express at the NWA 60th anniversary show in Atlanta, Georgia. In August 2011, the Midnight Express wrestled their last match as a team together against The Rock, Roll Express at JCW's Legends and Icons show. In wrestling, finishing and signature moves. Rocket Launcher, Wedge-O-Matic. Signature moves. Double Goozle, Double Flapjack. Managers: Jim Cornette, Big Bubba Rogers, Paul E. Dangerously. Championships and accomplishments: Austin and Condrey Continental Wrestling Association CWA World Tag Team Championship, Condrey and Eaton All-Star Wrestling ASW Tag Team Championship, International Wrestling Cartel IWC Tag Team Championship, Jim Crockett Promotions NWA World Tag Team Championship, Mid-South Wrestling Mid-South Tag Team Championship, NWA Bluegrass Tag Team Championship, NWA Rocky Top NWA Rocky Top Tag Team Championship. Pro Wrestling Illustrated PWI ranked them number 21 of the 100 best tag teams during the PWI years. In 2003 World Class Championship Wrestling NWA American Tag Team Championship Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards Tag Team of the Year, Condrey and Rose American Wrestling Association Our World Tag Team Championship, Continental Wrestling Association Our Southern Tag Team Championship, with Norval Austin Southeastern Championship Wrestling NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championship, NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championship Tournament, Windy City Pro Wrestling WCPW Tag Team Championship, Eaton and Lane Jim Crockett Promotions World Championship Wrestling NWA United States Tag Team Championship, NWA World Tag Team Championship. Pro Wrestling Illustrated PWI Tag Team of the Year. PWI ranked them number 32 of the 100 best tag teams during the PWI years. In 2003 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards Feud of the Year vs. The Fantastics Tag Team of the Year, Eaton and Nelson NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championship, Holly and Gunn World Wrestling Federation NWA World Tag Team Championship.